Hello and welcome to this video workshop for your circular knitting machine. In this video workshop I will explain and demonstrate how you can do color work on your circular knitting machine. Color work is using different colors to get an image. The image you use needs to fit on the tube that you knit with your machine. I'm going to explain that in a moment. You can use charts that are for cross stitch or for iron beads. You can use whatever chart with blocks. But it's important that the chart is not too big. And how do you know the chart is not too big? For example, this is knitted with a circular knitting machine with 22 needles. I'm going to look here. These are the different sizes machines. And when you knit a tube and you push it flat, then you have half the amount of stitches that you would have in a tube. So don't make your project wider than half the amount of stitches of your tube, because then you will not see the complete project. So I made a little cheat sheet. When you have a machine with 20 needles, you have 10 stitches when you lay it flat, so your cross stitch or iron bead chart, your pattern, cannot be wider than 8 stitches. When you have a machine with 22 needles, your pattern cannot be wider than 9 stitches. I made this on the 22 needle circular knitting machine, and this pattern is 10 stitches, so 1 stitch is at the corner. And the 11 stitches here. So now you can see that when you use 9 stitches, it won't touch the corner. When you have a machine with 32 needles, your pattern can be maximum 14 stitches wide. Smaller is also a possibility, of course, but then you have to keep in mind that you have to calculate where to start with your pattern to get it in the middle of the tube. So not that you start here and that you finish here and then the heart is not in the center. When you have a machine with 40 needles, you can use a pattern with a maximum width of 18 stitches. When you have a 44 needle machine, maximum width 20 stitches, 46 needles, 21 stitches maximum width of the pattern, and 48 is 22 stitches maximum width of the pattern. I have done this on the 46 needle circular knitting machine. It's this pattern. This is a lot of work, a lot of color changes, because that's what we are going to do, and a lot of knotting, making knots. When you are going to do something like this, start with a heart, because that's the most simple way to learn this technique and to practice. This is for people who are used to make knots and doing this, because this is a lot of work and it needs a lot of concentration and focus to do this as good as possible. Also important to tell, you are going to lose a lot of yarn, because this you are going to cut it, or you are going to use it as stuffing, but I like to cut it like this long, and then it will disappear between the layers. But when you have so many yarn tails, your project will be a little bit thicker. The more yarn tails, the thicker it's going to be, because those ends are going to stuff your tube. So, patience, and then it's basically very simple, because it's only about changing colors. So let's continue, and then you can see how it works. For this demonstration, I'm going to use the cat pattern. I already started, and I'm going to do it on the half of the tube. This pattern is 11 stitches wide, 9 stitches for the pattern itself, and 2 stitches on the side makes 11 stitches. I'm going to start my work with a few rows in the main color, and then I'm going to start knitting the pattern starting at the first needle. And I'm going to knit 2 background colors and 4 cat colors and the rest in the background. And now I'm going to show you how to do that. I already started the first rows. I'm going to count my first 2 stitches. This is the first, this is the second. The needle has to grab the yarn, and now I'm going to cut my yarn. Make sure it's long enough that it touches the table, and I'm going to put it to the inside between the second 1, 2 and the third needle. So between second and third needle, I'm taking the color of the cat, black in this case. I'm going to put the tail to the inside long enough that it touches the table in the same spot between the second and the third needle, just like they are going to join each other. And I'm going to knit my 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. This is the 4th needle. I'm going to cut my yarn long enough that it touches the table. And I put it to the inside after the 4th stitch I have knitted. And I'm taking my background color, put it in the same spot where the black yarn is, making sure it's long enough that it touches the table, and continue knitting this row until I reach the first needle. This is the last stitch, this is the first one, and I'm going to check the second row I have to knit. First background, second, third black, then 2 background, 2 cat, and the rest of the row is background. So 1 background. I cut my yarn. The first needle has the yarn under it. I put my yarn to the inside, making sure that the tail is long enough. I take my second color, put it in the same spot between the first and the second needle, and I'm going to knit 2 stitches. Now it's important that you make sure that the loop from the previous round is all the way down. The second stitch, I'm going to cut my yarn. Always make sure that the loops are all the way down when the needle grabs the yarn. I'm putting the tail to the inside, add the second color in the same spot and knit the 2 stitches with that color following my pattern. Change to black in the same spot, knit the 2 black stitches, see, in the same spot, always in the same spot, 2 tails in the same spot. 2 stitches in black, cut the yarn long enough that it touches the table, put it to the inside, change color to the background color in the same spot, long enough that it touches the table, and knit the rest of this row until you reach the first stitch, and then make sure that all the loops are down. That's very important, and continue knitting the pattern the same way, and do that for every row. Make sure that all the loops are always down. Doing color work makes that you have to do a lot helping by hand, but it still goes faster than knitting by hand. So don't start with a project with a lot of colors. See, you always have to check, especially where there are very few stitches on a piece of yarn, but just push them down with your finger and it will be fine. Also make sure that you have the yarn tails long enough that they reach the table, that they touch the table, otherwise they can fall apart and you don't want that. And make sure that you push the loops down and continue following the pattern. I will speed up the video and I will see you back when I have knitted the tube with the pattern completely. So the knitting is finished, and now comes the hardest part. Your work is going to look horrible at this moment, but it's going to work out fine. Don't go pull at your work, but carefully put it inside out. And now you are going to watch carefully at your work, and you see big stitches, loose stitches, holes, and that's correct because we are going to join all the color changes to each other in the same order that we did knitting them. Everything that's disturbing, like my cast on and cast off and scrap yarn tails, I'm going to put to the inside so I cannot get confused by them. Be very careful organizing it, and I'm going to start at the beginning. I'm going to follow the chart in the same order. So this is the side where I started my pattern. I'm taking my pattern so I can follow exactly what I did when I knitted it. And I'm going to join every color change in the same order I knitted. So I started to search for my ears color change, the first row. So it's going to be most on top. And I change from the background to the cat. That's one pair. The next change is from this is the background color, and that's going to be connected with the cat color. I'm going to find my next cat color in the same row, and I'm going to join that to the background color. Those tails are next to each other, and you are going to join them always in pairs. So you see my two pairs from the first row, and I'm going to making knots that way that it looks like a stitch, that tight. So this is the size of a stitch. I'm trying to make it that tight. Don't pull too hard because too tight is too tight. Then I make a double knot over it, and this one is finished, and then I'm going to do the next one. Stitches can be very big, and it's tension that makes it better, so you have to knot very carefully every color change. Don't knot them too tight already. You do that at the end so you can change the tension a bit. Then I'm going to start with the second row. I'm checking the amount of yarn color changes, and I'm going to find myself those pairs, and I'm going to knot them in the right tension. Practice makes perfect, but you have to have a lot of patience when you do this. It's nice to use this at the end and beginning of a scarf, for example, but I would not make it very complex by using a lot of colors. Keep it simple, but it's fun to do and it doesn't take hours. Here are the stitches a bit big, so I'm going to play a little bit with the tension to make them a bit tighter, smaller. And then I'm going to make a knot, not too tight, so I can change it later. When you find it difficult sometimes to find the next pair, You just turn your work and start working from the other side, from the other end. And then it will all come together because you always work in pairs. Sometimes you have to undo a knot because you made a mistake, but you can do that all. But take your time, take your time. Here we have the side where it's a big hole. We have to tie all the background tails to the cat tails, cat color tails. And when you look carefully, you see them in a certain order, all above each other. So this is very simple to do. I will speed up a bit. The stitches next to it are a bit wide, but they will correct automatically when you join the other side of those stitches. Everything is going to be okay. Find the correct pairs and knot them to each other. You always knot pairs with two different colors. When you knot the same color, you're making a mistake. Watch carefully. Take your time to find the pairs, to add a bit tension when needed, and continue knotting. Now I'm making a mistake, but I still don't know it when I was taping this, because I forgot to add the color yarn tail. So I have to undo the stitches I'm making now later. But it will work out fine. It goes quick. This is the moment where I find out that I made a mistake, so I'm going to undo and redo. And I continue knotting, undoing and re-knotting all the way until I think I'm finished. This will take a couple of minutes. So I think I have knotted all the pairs now. So let's flip our work and see the results. Yay! There is the cat. I see I have to adjust a few knots a bit. But there it is. Let's go and find the problem stitches and redo them. And then I'm going to cut the yarn ends. And I'm going to close the tube. But first make sure that everything is okay. I'm going to cut my yarn tails a little bit shorter. And then I can adjust the knots or tighten them fully to finish off my project. Here are stitches a bit loose, so I'm going to tighten them a bit. I forgot a pair. No, and now I can adjust with my yarn needle also a few stitches, and that's basically it. And there it is. I pulled one tail too tight, but it's just an example. Start with a heart when you want to practice and show the results on my Facebook or Instagram. See the description of this video for more information. Also in the description of this video, the link to the complete playlist on YouTube with all my free patterns and skill videos. Thank you for watching. Feel free to leave a donation on my PayPal and join my channel to never miss any other Circular Knitting Machine video. Bye bye, stay safe, with love from Holland. Thank you. See you later.